Hi everyone, Leanne here from Aussie Quilt. Today I'm going to show you our Aussie Quilt strip cutter as well as our safety rulers. We are doing a wonderful AQQiChat with a whole group of people, and I would like to make special mention of Suzanne Cook and Sue Hatton, our life members to AQQ, and unfortunately that means they can never escape. Yay! So let's begin our day. This is the Aussie Quilt strip cutter. So whether you are left-handed or right-handed, it makes no difference, because not only is our rotary cutter right-handed or left-handed, it makes no difference, and it goes from 0 to 20 and 0 to 20, all in half-inch increments. And if you want to cut, say, 3 1/4, it's got a 1/4 inch mark down each side, so you can do that as well. For those of you who know me, I love the idea of hand sewing. I would rather stab my eyeballs out rather than actually thread a needle, but that's just me. I love people who hand sew. I just don't have the patience or the tenacity. But I also don't cut 1/8 of an inch. You can cut down, you can't cut up. You can't water it and make it grow. So if it says 1/8 of an inch, I always cut 1/4 and then go from there. However, the strip cutter is accurate to 1/100th of a millimetre. So if you can see that it's not exactly right, yeah, well, let's pretend that we'll call you Pinocchio. How about that? All right. It also comes with 3 cutting guides. Now, I don't know if you can see these. It's 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 2, 3 1/2, 4 1/2, and 6 1/2. And the idea of it is, let me just grab the 2 1/2. You pop it in, so you can see here. And if Ralph had his little zoom on, can you see that it actually blocks out the ones that you don't need to cut? So that's the 2 1/2. Can you all see that? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Perfect. All right, so all I'm going to do, you can cut 1 layer, you can cut 10 layers with the strip cutter. It makes no difference. So all I've done is I folded over, this is selvage to selvage up here, and I folded it over again because I'm going to show you some strip cutting. Pop it down. It does so much more than just cut strips. You can do strips, you can do squares. We had a beautiful lady, if you've watched the video on Facebook, it says you can do strips, you can do rectangles, diamonds, triangles, and a lady rang me and said, but does it do squares? Think about that. Yes, it does do squares. So I'm going to put my blade in here and simply cut. Put it in the teardrop and away you go. Now, I don't know if you can hear that noise. Can the girls hear that noise? Now, the beauty of this is it doesn't move. So even if you get distracted, you've got to go away and feed a baby bird, for example, you can come back and it hasn't moved anywhere. The cat can knock it, walk all over it, doesn't matter. If you're like me, the phone rings and it's your mum and you're on the phone for 4.5 hours and you come back and you go, oh, where was I up to? Maybe this one. When you do it again, it doesn't matter because you're not changing where you're cutting. So there is no sound. And that means, you know, you've already done it. So I'll just be quiet for 1 second and listen. No sound. Sound. Can you hear the difference? Right. The other thing you must remember to do is move your feet. As you're cutting here, so I'm going to cut, 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 and I'm moving my body as I'm cutting, because you wouldn't stand here and try and cut like this. Does that make sense to you all? We actually have a lady who keeps standing in one spot and trying to cut, but she keeps twisting. As you put that in, it's going to twist. Please don't. Move your feet. And if you put your Fitbit on, you can pretend like it's an aerobic workout at the same time. Okay? That sound good? You can do 2 things at once. Now with this, I've just cut all these strips. Pretty simple. When you want to cut a square, you simply... Now the way I cut things so very quickly, I cut about 60 quilts a week. How I do it so quickly is I cut all my strips. So let's say we're doing an Aussie Trails, 4.5 inch squares. I'm just simply going to pack them all on top of each other like this. pop it back down, and start cutting again. Look how fast you get a whole pile of 2.5 inch squares. Bit different to cutting it with an old pair of scissors or the normal way that you'd hold onto a ruler and away you go, which wouldn't be accurate anyway. So that's squares. Obviously rectangles, you cut those to what size you want. The diamonds, you simply lay along. Now our cutting board, you can see it here. Most cutting boards have so many different markings, and you don't use them all. We've simply put the 60 and the 45. That's all you need. Pop it down, back down again. This is a 2.5 inch strip, and now I'm just cross cutting it in 2.5 inches again, and now we have 2.5 inch diamonds. Pretty simple. Now that's kind of the simple basics. If you want to cut these into triangles, obviously corner to corner, straight across, you can do them in triangles. Now, the other thing that we do are our safety rulers, and I'll explain that in a moment, but the easiest way to cut these into a triangle, safety ruler down, straight through, perfect triangle. The beauty of the strip cutter is, if you're going to constantly cut on the 0, 0, 0, you're going to wear a hole in your board. These boards are made for us. They are, with a lot of research from Ralph, they are the best boards we've found. Everyone says, oh, how do you get your blade to last so long? They're perfect blades. Well, it's actually that the board is a little softer, so that as you're cutting, you're not destroying your blade, but also you're not trying to cut around a template where you're going to cut the corners off your Perspex template. Who's got templates that's got rounded corners? Me. Because you cut the corners off it, unfortunately. Sue Hatton's laughing, she gets that. But the best thing about this is, if you're constantly cutting on the 0, undo the wing nuts. I'll just pull this down. None of the girls can't see. Hang on. Can you see the little wing nuts at the top here? Simply undo those and move your board. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. Just, you know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. But I will say, when you do it, make sure that you then line up. So you've got lines along here, along your boards. You'll see that when you get yours. Line them up to the horizontal lines on the board here. If you need to twist your board slightly to get it to line up again, do that. So I've now got the parallel line all there, and do remember to tighten it back up again, otherwise you'll end up throwing it in somebody's lap. Maureen, you had already been and gone when that happened, but I actually picked it up and promptly threw it in one of the girls' laps at the workshop we did up there with you. So it was very elegant. But now, as you can see, you can move it up, down. When you're cutting, I tend to bring it closer to me, pop your gear across there and cut. As I said, you can cut up to 10 layers, but it is a little bit of training. When you first cut, I'm just going to grab one of these. You pop it down, and it's a little bit of pressure to get through. When you're doing 10 layers, obviously you're going to need to cut through and put a little bit more pressure on it. So it's just a practice thing. So when you've got 1 layer, it's a whole lot less pressure than it is when you've got 10. It's still super easy to do. We've got so many people with hand problems, arthritis problems. We've actually got a lady in New Zealand who has 1 arm and now cuts her quilts, because before she couldn't hold the template and cut. So now with only 1 arm, she can actually cut her own quilts, which is an absolute boon. The other thing about the strip cutter and the board is, if you've worn out the one side, if you're right-handed, that's fine. If you're left-handed, simply have the blade to here, to the slot. I couldn't think of the word then. Yeah, obviously I haven't got enough coffee. Put it in and cut. But you also then have your fabric out this way. So if I was left-handed, this is normally Emily's department. Emily does apologise. Some of you know why she's not here today. Some of you don't. But Emily is our beautiful third partner in the business. But she's just tied up today, unfortunately. And so you would cut, you'd have your fabric out this way and cut this way. Does that make sense? So for those who are left-handed, cut this way. For those who are right-handed, you cut that way. Now with the board, because you're really only looking at the horizontal lines, not the vertical lines, because once you move it left and right, you're not going to line up with the vertical lines anyway, and it doesn't matter because you can't see it once you've got the fabric underneath it. But you can simply take this whole thing off, as in, and turn your whole board over. So you can use this side, you can turn it around, use that side, then you can turn it over and use both sides. So that's actually 4 times the length of the board, as in 4 times the longevity of the board compared to a normal cutting board. So it really is, you know, you're going to invest in one of these, or you have invested in it. We want you to get the most out of it. And as you'll see, simply, I'm just popping it back on like that, down. Then I'm lining up my horizontal line on the bottom and tightening it back up again. Does all that make sense so far? So let's just say my beautiful friend Sue Cook was going to be cutting out her brand new unicorn panel. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Did you like the way I slipped that in there, Sue Cook? Did you like that? This is yours. I'm sending you some of them. If I wanted to fussy cut, you can line them up now because you can see straight through where you need to cut. So you can roughly cut the square out, no problem, but then you can line it up perfectly so you can make them perfectly the size you need without having to jiggle and juggle them all around. It's one thing that a lot of people don't realize they can do with it, and we had a whole workshop on fussy cutting, so we got like different blocks and cut them all up, but it does make it a whole lot easier. Can you see how that would work? Yep, everybody's nodding. Good. The other thing that we can do with the strip cutter is cut our bias strips. So I've simply got just a fat quarter. I'm going to fold it and then fold it again, pop it down on the board, lining up along the horizontal line here, popping it down. Now I'm going to cut 2.5-inch strips again for this one. Girls, you obviously don't need the guides in once you get used to it. I've had a beautiful lady message me and say she couldn't use it because it didn't have an 8.5-inch guide. You can still cut up 8.5-inch strips and 8.5-inch squares without the guides. These only go up to 6.5. So all I'm going to do is cut 2.5-inch strips, moving my feet again as you know, and now I have loads and loads of perfect bias strips. That simple. So by turning the folding it and folding it the way I did. Now there are videos for all of these things, not only the bias, but we are getting a fussy cut one up soon. But the cutting of the squares, all the things that I'm showing you today, there are videos for on our Facebook page and on our website under the tips and freebies page. This was just simply, a lot of people like to see it in action in front of them because they think that the videos are kind of mocked up or something, I don't know. The other thing I like to show you is our safety rulers. Now, when you are normally cutting with a ruler, a template, you're pressing against it and it moves that way, yes? Or you're not pressing against it hard enough and you go off to the never never. Who's ever done that? Yep, pretty much everybody, hey. But with the safety ruler, it's absolutely a fabulous thing because remembering I cut a whole heap of squares here, if I wanted to cut those into diamonds, simply pop it down. Triangles, yeah, not diamonds. If I wanted to cut it into triangles, corner to corner, and because it's downward pressure, you're not pushing sideways, it's perfect every time. Now that's a whole heap of little triangles. Makes it much easier to cut. The other thing is on this one, it's got markings along here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can hold it up. But it's got just lines across here and the 1/4 inch across here, so that when you're trimming the corner of your quilt or your corner blocks, you're trimming your borders, you line that up along the border and cut perfectly straight. So you're squaring up your corner at the same time. So you use the one tool to do all the different jobs. We also have that as a long ruler. So it's got the slot, this is a 23-inch ruler, and it's got the slot down and all the markings there. That's for trimming around the outsides of your quilts so that they don't slip and slide and you don't end up with rounded corners on your quilts. The other one we have is our multi-cutter. Now the multi-cutter has got curves in it, and so we use that for doing our drunkard's paths or our double wedding ring quilt. You might have seen that on our Facebook page recently. It's kind of for doing everything that the whole template is for doing any one of our 18 quilts, but it's got a whole lot of different markings on it, but you don't have to remember which marking goes with what, because when you get the video, say for our 8-hour quilt, we say use these markings. When we say do the Starmish quilt, we tell you which markings to use for that. I'm going to cut a circle from this one just so that you can see how easy it is to use. So I've just got, this is just any random fat 1/4. I'm going to fold it and fold it again. Normally you would cut a 13.5-inch strip if you want to write that down, so that you can use this inner circle is a 13.5-inch strip. The outside one is a 15.5-inch strip. And can you see it's got a little circle point there? That reminds me that we're going to be cutting a circle. I'm simply going to pop it down, line up the 2 lines, hand flat and straight round. You now have a perfect circle. Very simple. If you're going to be doing the drunkard's path, you use the same marking and move it down too, so you cut the other part of it so that's got all your seam allowances in that. When you get the drunkard's path video, if you're doing it the traditional way, that's all explained in there. Now, when we did the circle quilt a little while ago, we were challenged by our lovely girls. Well, that's okay for that size circle, which is a 6.5-inch diameter, but what do you do when you want to cut other circles? So the enabler, aka Ralph, went and made this curve cutter ruler. It's got a pinhole in the end there. I don't know if you can see, but you do the same thing. You fold it and fold it, pop your pin in the center, and obviously without the cutter on it, you draw your whatever size you want. So this is from 4 inches up to 23 inches. That's your radius. But then to cut it, now I'm only going to give you a quick précis here because the video is on the website and it's much easier to watch the video. You line it up, and down the side here it's got from A right through to V. You line it down the side of your circle. Okay, so this one looks like an I to O, and you simply cut. Then you move up to that, to the last marking, and cut. You can go around the whole thing. In about 4 cuts, you can do any size circle with that safety ruler. So that's our curve cutter. And for those of you who have been waiting, we finally have, now none of you have seen this. Ta-da! This is our 60-degree triangle multi-cutter, once again with the safety lines in it. And it's for those who want to fussy cut to make their beautiful matching hexagons, triangles. You can do borders with these. I've just simply cut a strip, use the multi tool to cut it up, and now you have beautiful hexagons. You know how we've all got that striped fabric in our kit that we never ever know what to do with? The border print? Well, I have a rather large collection, girls, and so Ralph made this for me to play with. I'm just going to get rid of those. Here it is in little bits to make little ones. Sorry, Sue Hatton, you didn't get this piece in your Christmas parcel. I had to use it. But you can see you can do all sorts of pretty little things with this, but you can also use them as borders. So doing that, then putting in a, let's say a plain, and keep going, and that makes a really pretty border. So how we use this is our little stripy bit. So I'm going to cross cut this. I've pattern matched. Can you see how I've lined up the patterns on each one? So that's half of it. I'm folding it over so the pattern matches. And I'm just going to chop it at, doesn't really matter where. This one's going to be to there. Just so that I've got something to show you. So obviously out of your border print you can get a whole lot done. Now on here, I don't know if you can see, it's got all the different markings, 1/2 inch and all different things there. Sue Hatton's frowning there. I'm going to line it up, and this is going to be 3 inches. I simply cut and cut. Take that one away and then move it down, and now you're actually going to be cutting 2 at a time. It gives you the ability to pattern match perfectly as you go through. Once again, with the safety ruler, I know there are others on the market, but it's the safety. I can't stress enough the safety factor of our rulers, because your blade, it's a rotary razor blade. And see these? They need to stay where they are. So when you're using templates, you're pushing, you slip. Who's ever slipped and caught their finger on a blade? Yeah. Julie, that's terribly sad, isn't it, Maureen? We know what it's like. So this was all invented because of my beautiful mum, as most of you know. But it's a safety factor. I had one lady literally abuse me the other day on Facebook saying, oh, for the price of it, I'll just keep using my scissors, etc. And that's fine. But I'm thinking of the people, none of us are getting any younger. And you can have the safety factor with these rulers and know that, one, it's going to be perfectly straight, because let's face it, fabric is not cheap. You're not going to muck up your fabric and have to go buy more. It's going to be perfectly straight, therefore your quilt will be put together straight, and then the outcome will be great, so you are more likely to keep quilting. That's our little triangle cutter. Can you see how I've just made that one there? I didn't do quite enough, I'm just kind of mucking around here to show you. Can you see how pretty that is? Okay, so that's our strip cutter, that's our safety rulers. You can now all unmute and ask me any questions. What do you think of them?
I actually showed a left-hander how to use your cutter here the other weekend.
Oh, excellent. And it's amazing. We had a lady that's got a bung shoulder. She has had a shoulder operation, and she said, no, I'm always right-handed. I can't possibly change. So we said, okay, give it a go a little bit right-handed. And she said, no, I can really feel that. And we said, so Ralph said, okay, let's, you know, I was still talking to everybody else, but he said, okay, let's go aside. And she actually picked up the rotary cutter and she started cutting left-handed. Because the blade is in the slot, it won't move. So even if you go a little bit slower, it still cuts perfectly. So it really is a boon for pretty much anybody. So quick hands up if you have a quick question for anything.
I'll come up with my questions later.
Yeah, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, like half an hour later, I'd go, oh, I should have asked that.
Yeah.
Don't you hate that, Sue?
Yeah, that's me every time.
Me too.
The questions just come through on Ralph saying, how do you cut different sizes of the triangles? I'm just going to flick over to the top again. The strip that you cut, whether you cut a 2-inch strip, a 3-inch strip, figure out what you need at the beginning. And on here, so this piece is all the same, but you've got these lines to line up the one before. You know how I cut up and down, up and up, but then moved it. So it's got all 1/2-inch increments down the side and down here. So if you've cut a 4-inch strip, you lay it on the 4, the point on the top of your pattern. Can you see I've got my point on my top of my pattern there? And then so that would be a strip, and you simply cut. Whatever size you need, you cut your strip first. So if I want a 6-inch border, I cut a 6-inch strip. or 6.5-inch strip, and then cut that up to bring it down to 6. Don't forget to put your seam allowances in, girls, because otherwise you cut up all your fabric and the seam, the border will be slightly smaller. I am going to do a video on about 8 different borders that I've come up with using this. So does that explain how you get your different sizes?
Can I ask a question, please?
Do you want a gift? Yeah, sure.
I want to know that strip cutter that you're touching, how flexible are those?
This one here, can you show this one here? This is my original one, the actual very, very first one ever made. So this one's been around the world about 3 times. It's been all around Australia several times. They are flexible enough that it won't break, but they are quite solid in as much as that you can put the blade in and cut. And as long as you move your feet, they won't bend. If I'm standing over here and I'm trying to cut over there, of course it will bend. The blade slips under, but if you move your feet and cut as you go, they are they're solid enough that you get that accurate up to 1/100th of a millimeter, but they're flexible enough that if you pick it up and sort of put it down hard, it's not going to snap. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, I want to know because
This baby here has cut about 60 quilts a week for the last 2.5-3 years, and it's
never broke.
Yep, never broken yet. It's got a little ding. I will say right up here in this top corner, it's got a little ding because in my classes, those of you who saw us live, like Carleen, Maureen, Christina, you've seen us while we were on tour. You know how many people jump up and cut through it. Hey, it's and we've had like 5-year-olds come up and go hack, 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 before they sort of get the hang of it, they feel like they've got to cut right up into the back slots here. You really don't, but it's still the same cutter gone everywhere.
The lady that just said about transporting the mats, I go to a lot of craft camps and I actually transport mine everywhere with me. And mine's never broken, never done any damage to it yet.
It also comes with the carry bag. Yeah, so you've got the older carry bag. This is the new carry bag, and this one comes with it. It actually will fit all of it in. I slide it with the metal side into the bag first, and that packs really, really nicely. You can then put all your safety rulers in and your rotary cutter, and the beauty of it is you can actually see if you've left anything behind. Someone's asking me, why do I get a dip in the strip where Andre?
That's me.
Lovely. Yep. The one thing I will say is make sure, see how this fabric is all folded a little bit funny? Yeah?
Yep.
So make sure it's all pressed perfectly will help a great deal, because if you're cutting through a bump, the bump is going to be in there. So we're going to pretend like this is all perfectly done. Ralph just asked, when you're saying a dip, what are you actually meaning? Like it's got a curve in here or it's bulging out?
Sort of it goes a bit narrower where that fold is, like only slightly, but enough to throw out when you do a 1/4 inch seam, then it's
of course.
Goes a bit thinner.
I honestly don't know, because you've just watched me cut this one and it's not even ironed.
Yeah.
And I've straightened it. So make sure your fabric's ironed to start with and make sure it's flat. But as Ralph was saying, he feels that as you are putting your blade in, you're kind of biting that in a little bit, twisting it. So, so what I would do is move it up slightly, put my blade in here, and see how I now cut a bit extra before I get to the fabric. Can you see this? So move it up a little bit. And then you'll be cutting straight as you hit that line. I'm feeling like you're either kind of pushing in and just not having that blade straight. It has got to be straight up and down. If you do that, it's going to be, can you see that it's on an angle?
Yep.
So I'll just try and do that. So as you can see, that's exactly what it's done. It's twisted. So as you're putting your blade in, right, move your fabric up is my first hint. And so that way you're running already before you hit the fabric. And as you're doing it here, your blade is on the angle and it's dipping in there. So it certainly would be a difference when you're trying to do a 1/4 inch. So make sure your blade's straight up and down. Does that answer the question?
That's all.
Christina's just asked, can you attach the strip cutter to any cutting board? Yes, you can, but why would you? The only reason I'm saying that is, there's a very good reason, because our cutting boards are designed, as I said before, they're a lot softer than a standard cutting board. So sure, once it wears out, you can certainly replace it with a different board. You can also use the older boards, and what we were doing on tour is if you want to cut your pellin or your batting or any let's say even minky that's going to really cut into the board. You know, when you're cutting it, the fibres all get stuck into the board. So you simply take this off here. Have you got an old board kicking around? Anyway, pretend like this is an old board. We'll just literally undo that and then you slide it back on. So do change out your boards. That's a very, very good question. And then don't forget to line it back up again. But as you're cutting, it's a self-healing mat. So even if you find that you're cutting on this one and it gets some fibres in it, you've seen the video on our website saying how to clean your boards. Get a really nice damp chuck so that you can actually literally squeeze a couple of drops out of it, and simply in circular motions, clean it, move your chucks again because it'll pick up all the fibres, and again, and again. So clean your board. I clean my board, as I said, I cut about 60 quilts a week. So I would clean my board probably 3 times a week. So that will actually make it last a lot longer. Very good question. So yes, you can switch it out onto any board, especially if you're going to be cutting pellin or any of the thicker ones. Maureen, yes, good question. I did just answer the fact that we do clean the boards, but just with water. Please don't use any chemicals on it. You just simply water. And if you have bore water or anything that might have those chemicals, I do recommend that you just use a little bit of bottled water. I know it's a bit of a waste, but when you consider the cost of your board, the cost of your fabric, the cost of your rotary cutter, 1 bottle of water is kind of worth it, because we just don't know with tank waters and bore waters and all that sort of stuff what's in it. So simply fresh water and a fresh chucks, and chuck out the chucks at the end of it, because it really will, you'll be going, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much, even just the normal fibres. You know yourself in your craft room when you've cut quilts, how much fluff and dirt and dust is everywhere. That's all getting in your machine. That's also getting in this. So do clean your machine before you begin a project. And if you're like me, halfway through a project, and then also at the end of the project, especially when you're in really dusty, dirty, red dirt type places, please do clean your machines and do clean your boards.
Next question, can you show, Karen has asked, how to use the 1/4 inch cut when using the strip cutter?
Oh, of course, Karen. Good question. Good question. Let me do that for you. Can you see down here there's a 1/4 inch mark? If you've got your strip cutter in front of you, have a look at it. You might as well. You'll see it on your strip cutter. There's a 1/4 inch mark down there.
It's a dotted line.
It's a dotted line. This bit of pink here, doesn't matter. So if I want a 1/4 inch, I simply put my fabric on that 1/4 inch. Can you see that I've got it here down the side? And today I want 3 1/4. So I'm going to take my guide out. I'm going to find my rotary cutter under this pile of fabric that I've cut, and I'm cutting 3. So that's now 3 1/4. And you can also message me at any time on this, and I answer it pretty much 24 hours a day.
24/7.
Yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning, doesn't matter. But thank you all for joining us. Hope you've had
Thank
fun.
you.
And message me if you
Bye.
need anything.
Love
Bye
you
now.
all. Bye.
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.